It's often said that art helps us understand the experiences of others. And if that is so, a challenging new exhibit at Tulane's Newcomb Art Gallery in New Orleans forces us to confront a side of society normally kept out of sight and therefore difficult to see. Newcomb Museum curators connected artists with currently or formerly incarcerated women, asking them to create works to interpret the inmates' experiences. The result? 30 opportunities to learn the truth behind the phrase, "My crime is not who I am."
Louisiana until last year was the prison capital of the world. We incarcerate 1 out of 75 adults in Louisiana. Former Attorney General Loretta Lynch said, when you incarcerate a mother, you actually incarcerate a family. So we decided to see what are the root causes for us, Louisiana, to be considered the prison capital of the world. What's happening? And so we went to the directly impacted community and we asked from their expertise, their lived experiences, why do you feel this is happening? And so together with them, we decided to identify 4 themes that are explored in the exhibition. One of them are root causes. Why is there an increase of 834% of women in the prison system in the last 40 years? There's been the criminalization of maybe sex work. There's been the criminalization of a lot of situations where underserved communities fall themselves. 80% of the women in the prison system, for example, are mothers.
My family committed an offense back in September of 1997. And my husband and his nephew were detained, and I later turned myself in for an armed robbery charge where we tried to take money from a bank to assist us in the family's financial collapse that we were going through at the time. When I went to go pick up our son from school the same day that the robbery had occurred, and when he gets in the car, normally his father picks him up every day. So when I picked him up, the first thing he wanted to know was where was his father. And I had to explain to him that his father was in jail. He released this loud, screeching bellow that just ripped my heart out of my chest. He immediately began to scream and bang on the car dashboard, no. You know, like he even had a clue of what it meant. When my husband was on trial, they had arrested me for the jury tampering. And so I was in jail. And I got my first prenatal care because when my husband came home on bond, I got pregnant. And he was at home for 4 months on bond, then they started his trial. When I'm in jail arrested on these 2 counts of jury tampering, they finally take me to the doctor so that I can be seen for my OBGYN appointment. And in that appointment, they do the ultrasound in these, I'm in handcuffs and shackles with an armed guard on my side and an armed guard outside of my door. The obstetrician comes over, moves the handcuffs out of the way, and does the sonogram, and 2 heads pop up on the screen. And all I could do was burst out into this loud, joyous cry. I'm thinking to myself, my God, you must be sending me a sign that even though I'm at the darkest moment of my life, for you to give me something so amazing. I knew that I was pregnant, but to have twins was unheard of in my family. I didn't think it was something that was even possible for me. And so to be presented with 2 lives at the darkest moment of my life, to me was just a sign from God to say, look, fool, I got you. We're gonna be all right.
Being completely powerless over what happens with your children. If you left children, I left 5. My 3 sons, all were brutally shot. I had a daughter who had run away and had, I was gone. For me, that's the hardest piece of being in prison. If you're a parent, every day I worried about my kids, every single day. And my crime isn't who I am. It doesn't even begin to explain who I am.
82% of the women in the prison system have suffered substance abuse. 87% of the women in the prison system have suffered sexual abuse. When we went out there and interviewed 30 formerly incarcerated women in the community, you see that some of them actually are telling more or less the same story. And so those stories are the ones that are here in the exhibition. Some of them are difficult to listen and difficult for the women to tell them to us. Many of them, it was the first time that anyone had asked them what happened. How did you feel about that then? What did you go through in the prison system, and how do you feel now?
I think the first time I had been physically abused, I was 3, and it lasted throughout my childhood to teenage years, so probably until I was about 16 or so. I was angry. I think a lot of times people don't realize that when people have been traumatized throughout their lives, there's no correct and politically correct way to act out trauma. So in 2000, I was 19 years old. My charge was use of fire to commit a felony. Myself and 3 other individuals, we went to a car dealership and we took cars from the car dealership, and in the process of taking the cars, we also burned the car dealership down. While I was incarcerated, I saw many women die, many women lose their minds, many women lose children, other family members, and it changed them substantially forever. I think that without that experience, I would not be the woman that I am today. So that's why I say I wouldn't change it. But if you had to ask me, would I do it again, like today, would I go back into it? The answer would be no. I did a lot of time in solitary confinement. I used to fight a lot when I first was incarcerated. I think it was a mixture of like fear, a mixture of not getting help with the trauma that I faced growing up, and just really learning how to deal with it.
A lot of the women also express a lot of obstacles, structural, systemic obstacles to going back into society, where they actually don't have a lot of structure and support they would need to go back into societies. And so they're difficult issues to understand and to learn from. So what we did in the art museum was we actually gave 30 local artists, or artists that have lived in Louisiana at some point in their lives, we gave them the stories of the 30 women, and we asked them to return them into artwork forms. Art is a very benign, safe vehicle to talk about things that we may not talk about with our families, we may not talk about in community. We thought that art could be the perfect vehicle for informally educating our community on the issues of our community, and to build some empathy and understanding. There's a lot of misunderstanding of the root causes for women to be in the prison system, what they go through in the prison system, for example, as mothers. 80% of them are mothers, most of them are mothers of young children, and a lot of them are head of household. And so our questions to them also in the exhibition: how do you mother long distance, right? How are you able to educate your children? Who takes care of the children while you're inside the prison system? 60% of the women, when they encounter the justice system, they were unemployed. So that's kind of like the root causes. We give this kind of overarching portrait of underserved community. We know that the prison system was designed after military complex, and they were designed for men. And so we have, from the building to the dynamics of how do you control discipline, or how do you discipline women inside the prison system, none of those issues, functions, situations were designed specifically for women, right? So what we see is that a lot of the women become re-traumatized in the prison system. They're reminded of some of the issues they suffered outside the prison system. We also found out that there's somewhat of a lack of attention to women's hygienic pads, gynecologist visits, natal care. We lack a little bit behind on really serving those women in that sense inside the prison system. So some of us tell us their experience there and what they saw firsthand that was happening there. So we have a wonderful quilt that represents the names of 107 women that are currently in the Louisiana prison system for life. They call themselves lifers. The quilt came about with a performing group that's called the Graduates. The quilt was actually beaded, embroidered, made, each one of the names, by many men in the Mardi Gras Indian groups, in their own tradition of the Mardi Gras Indian. And so the names were made by the Mardi Gras Indians, and the quilt was put together by Louis Mouton, an artist that had a residency in the John Mitchell Center here.